Talk. This is Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. And Truth for Youth Week right here on AFR Talk. We are partnering with Revival Fires Ministry, and we are attempting to get the Bible into the hands of young people. And in order to do that, we need your help. We have the Truth for Youth Bibles, which are ones designed that actually are easy to read. They give some, well, it's at times it looks like a comic book. That's how it's set up to ask and answer tough questions that so many of us, so many students face, but also as Christians face. It's the entire New Testament, and the goal this year is 60,000 Bibles. Now, you all, parents, can order a Bible on behalf of their son or daughter, or teens can call to get one. 2 ways to order a Bible. Visit afr.net or call toll-free 800-733-4737. That's 800-733-4737. 800-733-4737. And do that, well, you have to do that tomorrow between 8 and 5. Go to afr.net. Check it out. I'll be speaking more about this, but this is a way to directly transform the culture, the world, by speaking truth and love, by getting this Bible, the entire copy of the New Testament within the Truth for Youth Bible, into public schools. This is a way to do it. So check it out, afr.net. And now, speaking of those trying to influence the political discussion, certainly, would be David Axelrod. And David Axelrod, former senior advisor to the President of the United States, and ran his campaign before that, his first one. Now, David Axelrod is asked about President Obama and the idea of somehow there are those who politically disagree with him, but it's not their political disagreements that are the problem. It's the fact that they don't want to recognize him as legitimate. And Chris Matthews has spoken to this, and interestingly enough, this is an interview with Chris Matthews, Tingles. So here is what David Axelrod had to say. Roll it.
I think a lot of this emanates from the nature of the Republican base. And a lot of these guys are throwing red meat to the base. You would think how much red meat they need, is a big question. I would think they would be, their cholesterol would be about 400 by now. But yet they keep throwing the red meat, and they get rewarded within their constituencies for throwing that red meat. You mentioned Speaker Boehner. The real question is the Republican leadership going to tolerate that? Boehner has yet to really stand up to these folks. And, this is something that really deserves to be repudiated, and you'd hope he would. One thing I would say, though, Chris, is delegitimization of presidents is something that we've seen now. It happened under the Clinton administration. We all remember how vituperative those times were. And there were people on the left who aimed some of that at George W. Bush. Now, admittedly, it's spun out of control now because these folks are in control of the Republican Party. So it's at a fevered pitch now. But
okay, now he's speaking specifically to the talk of impeachment, and Ted Cruz was right. They don't have the votes, but if you look at it, it's a political measure. I spoke to it yesterday, as well as the birther issue, which Chris Matthews talks more about birther issue than pretty much anything else when it comes to mentioning it on a daily basis. Now, I'm not a birther myself. I understand why people do question the birth certificate. Bottom line, Obama loves the birth certificate issue. Loves it. Because it allows people in his administration and Chris Matthews and the like to say anybody who disagrees with the president. They're birthers, and they believe that he wasn't even born here, so, their criticism is not legitimate. It's to write it off, to push it off. As stated, I'm not a birther myself, but if people look at the case, I understand certainly why. But if you look in general America, and especially people tuning in at the time of election only, they're looking at it as, oh, wait a second, they're trying to attack the president personally here. They're not going to take the time to look at the case and anything else along those lines. No, they want this issue. They want the issue because they don't want to talk about what the failures and the record has been. And that's the unfortunate part. So we go to what the record is. And Kathleen Sebelius, Health and Human Service Secretary, was speaking to a Philadelphia audience to spread the word and about the benefits of Obamacare. And she says that Obamacare is settled law. It's the law of the land. It's done. It's not going away. Roll it.
This is an historic opportunity that we've never had in the United States. As the mayor said, presidents for 70 years have been trying to deal with comprehensive reform, Republicans and Democrats. And while it may seem that this is still a political debate, the debate is really over. The law was signed in March of 2010 by the President of the United States. A year ago, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, and President Barack Obama was reelected pretty overwhelmingly. This is the law, and we're about implementing the law. So it's great to be with all of you, and I look forward to working with you on a healthier, more prosperous Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the United States of America. So thanks very much.
All right. Well, Ted Cruz disagrees, Senator Ted Cruz, who's become quite popular within the conservative movement and Republican Party because he directly answers questions and he's willing to fight, as you'll soon see here in this interview with Candy Crawley when discussing the issue of defunding Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and how to do that. He is asked about the fact that does his office turn away those who are seeking information about Obamacare? That was a charge leveled at him by the President of the United States and his critics. But he says, no, that's not the case. We help all of our citizens. He spoke specifically to the issue of defunding Obamacare and why. Roll it.
What I agree with is I think now is the single best time to stop Obamacare because there's bipartisan agreement that it's not working. The wheels are coming off. And because defunding it, if it doesn't happen now, it's likely never to happen.
The president is never going to sign a bill that defunds Obamacare.
You may be convinced of that.
You're not convinced of that?
I am not
this
at all
is his
convinced
signature.
of that.
His signature piece of legislation. And Candy Crawley continued to say, hey, look, it's not going to happen. Why are you doing it? Roll it.
Here's what I think should happen. The House of Representatives should pass a continuing resolution that funds the federal government in its entirety, every aspect of the federal government, except Obamacare. And it should explicitly prohibit any funding for Obamacare, mandatory or discretionary. And I filed legislative language in the Senate to do that. Now, the next stage, we know how this play goes forward. President Obama, Harry Reid, will scream and holler that the mean, nasty Republicans are threatening to shut down the government. And at that point, Republicans have to do something we haven't done in a long time. Stand up and win the argument. We have to stand up and say, no, we want to keep the government open. We have voted to keep the government open, to fund the government. Why is President Obama threatening to shut the government down, to force Obamacare down the throats of the American people?
So he's asked about specifically what he agrees with when it comes to defunding and why he's doing it. Then he lays out a strategy, and then he is pressed once again on, look, it's not going to pass. You don't have the votes. Why are you doing it? And remember, in that last answer, he says, we have to do something that we haven't done and stand and win the argument. You see, that seems to be the strategy of those who desire the Republicans to listen to the advice of those that oppose them, which the Republican Party is very good at doing, and that's why they lose. Here, Ted Cruz, roll it.
We do not have the votes right now. We need 41 Republicans in the Senate, or we need 218 Republicans in the House, and that will only happen. And you know what? This fight is likely to heat up in the month of September. That's going to be when the battle is engaged. And I'm convinced there's a new paradigm in politics that actually has Washington very uncomfortable. It has politicians in both parties very uncomfortable. And that new paradigm is the rise of the grassroots, the ability of grassroots activists to demand of their elected officials they do the right thing. And I believe if we see a grassroots tsunami, that is going to cause Republicans and Democrats to listen to the people.
But it's going to take a tsunami.
It is going to take a tsunami, and I'm going to do everything I can to encourage that tsunami.
It's already law. Why not just get on board and try it?
Because it's not working and it's hurting Americans. And by the way, the people it's hurting the most are the most vulnerable among us. The people who are losing their jobs are young people, are Hispanics, are African Americans, are single moms. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right.
Wonderful give and take with Candy Crawley on the issue of Obamacare. First, the idea of people agreeing not to defund the legislation with the strategy and who is he on board with, what he agrees with. And he is saying, look, this is a bad law. We don't have the votes right now, but we need to make the argument and make the case. We're not even making the case. We've got to start making the case. And why am I doing it? Because in essence, it's the right thing to do. And so what do they say of Cruz? They call him every name in the book. Why? Because they're afraid people will start listening to him. I hope you just did. Not because of an RRD, but because of accountability and opening up the discussion and having a substantive one. Take a good look. 56% of the deadlines missed. That's without the Republicans defunding those 9 others. And the cost being double of what it was supposed to be. Waivers and special treatment. Come on. You look at the record. It's a no-brainer. Crane Durham's nothing but truth. AFR Talk.